Well, this is a much needed conversation. I will tell you, it felt like therapy for me because Jess Piper is one of those people that just gets me, and I get her, and I call her my Missouri sister from another mister, and we were out there throat punching in the wake of that debate, and we've been throat punching some motherfuckers ever since. And I really, really needed to just have like a vent session with a person I both love and respect. And for everybody out there looking around going, why are they punching each other in the face? Not Jess and I, but Democrats largely, and the never Trumpers. We all know who I'm talking about. And it's not the Lincoln Project because they're doing good work. For everybody else out there feeling like they don't like seeing their parents fight, or that they're going insane because it's a circular firing squad, listen to this episode. You're going to get so fired up. You're going to get so ready to fight, and you're going to realize that you're not alone, and that we do need to focus on the common enemy and not on fighting each other. So enjoy. My guest today is my very good friend and one of my favorite people on social media and on Substack, Jess Piper. Jess is a fierce advocate for rural communities and public schools. She was an American literature teacher for 16 years and decided to run for a House seat in Missouri's 1st District in 2022. While she lost the race, she continues her activism. She's also executive director of Blue Missouri and writes a Substack called The View from Rural Missouri. Welcome back for the second time, I think, to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. My Missouri sister from another mister, Jess Piper. Girl, I just need to talk to you right now.
Joe, oh my God. I'm angry. I'm confused. I'm sitting back and watching the slow motion horror film playing in front. When you tell the girl, don't go into that room, don't go into the room, right? You know what's going to happen.
Danger. Danger.
There are
You know,
chainsaws everywhere.
I can hear the music changing. You know that this is not going to end well, but you're going in the room anyway. Not only are they going in the room, they're like, hey, guys, come on, come with us.
They're pulling us out of the car in the driveway. We're like, no, we have seen this before. God, no.
And we've got snacks in the car now. We're ready. We got the long haul. We're ready. Water, batteries. We got a can of extra gas. So it feels also to me, I love like a mixed metaphor. So it also, I can't stop thinking about Charlie and like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And I keep thinking about how they're all Mike TV and Veruca Salt and Augustus Gloop, and they all want the thing they want. And then we all know how it's going to end because they're just reaching for this thing, that singular thing that just they want. And then, but the problem is we're all going to go down the chute into wherever the Oompa Land is with them.
And Joe, I'm sure that you understand that all of those children and their parents were very entitled people. They always get what they want, and don't look around and see the big picture or the people around them.
Right. Right. Or the
Were
danger.
there, yeah, were there any Black characters in the Willy Wonka series?
It's funny that you say that. No,
I feel like
there
they're all
weren't.
white, white and entitled.
They are. That's funny that you say that. And it's the perfect segue because I was just looking at Rob Reiner's newest tweet, and I had to ask the question, like, are white rich dudes okay right now?
They're not. They probably have dual citizenship, passports, money, and a home in another country, right? Meanwhile, I'm in a town of 480 people with 5 kids and 4 grandkids and a donkey and dogs. Where am I going, Joe? Where are my neighbors going? They don't even have passports.
Exactly. That's the thing I kept thinking from the very beginning. Everybody who was indulging some fantastical scenarios of like, what if we exhume Betty White and like animate, Play-Doh, and then run that as a ticket. I'm not saying it's possible. I'm just saying maybe we should talk about it. But like those people, and they know who they are. I every one of them, I was like, but you have an escape plan. You have an
Right.
escape hatch. You have a pull cord. I don't have that. You
And in
could
general,
peace
they're
out.
men.
Right.
They're
Right.
men.
They are. They're all men. Except, I mean, I get it for there are some people, there's some, there are some women and there are some in the trans community in particular. I understand their
I get it.
anxiety,
Yep.
right? This
Yep.
is a big life or death. It is life or death for a lot of us, honestly. As I got home from the debate and I got inundated with, you need to move, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Texts. And we don't have an escape. Like you said, we don't have dual citizenship. We don't have a house in Lake Como. Like, this is it.
Right.
You got a donkey. I feel like you're a leg up on me, though. I don't know. Saddle that thing up, ride off into the sunset or
Girl,
something.
he's a miniature donkey. He's 36 inches high. He ain't taking me anywhere. He's like
Just
a
picturing
dog.
that now. Like a dog. It's just like,
So
I'm out of here.
the Jesus in the manger couldn't even fit on this donkey, right? I mean, and that's why you know what is really frustrating to me is that it's something I didn't want to talk about because this is party politics are very centrist, and I'm not centrist. I'm this rural Democrat out here, fighting and playing my edgy politics. And now you're going to force me to do the thing I don't want to do. But by God, it doesn't matter. And I've lost, and I'm sure you have too. I've lost so many followers and so many people who are like, I can't believe you're saying this. And today on TikTok, somebody said, this is really a leftist thing. It's, you're forcing us to vote for people you don't like. And I'm like, you know what? And Joe, you know this. I don't pay attention to the polls. I talk to people. I talked to the most left organizer I know in St. Louis. Just, I don't know, it was 3 or 4 days ago. And she is angry. She's pissed that this is what she's got to do. But by God, she's going to do it. She's going to vote for Joe Biden, and she knows that he shouldn't be switched out. And this is a lady who stands in the highways and blocks traffic,
Oh my
right?
God. Yeah.
The most left person I know. And they are on board. And also, I'll tell you this, she talks and works with Black organizers and Black women. And that is a voice that is consistently left out.
And they are huge movers and shapers of elections. I mean, they're the people who have the most at stake, the most on the line. They're already the most marginalized and disadvantaged and held down. And they're saying in this moment, he doesn't have to be my dream date. I don't need
Right.
to have his baby. I don't need to date him. I don't need to fuck him. I just need him to beat the fascist who is gonna let people put me in prison for having a miscarriage. You know what I'm saying? And they don't have none of us, but they already don't have the time to run these mythical what ifs. But like, it's just, I'm not vibing with Joe right now. Like,
Right.
who has the time to indulge those sorts of things aside from the most entitled who have the least on the line?
Right. And I think it probably comes with having some of it for me is a maternal instinct. It's an instinct that this person will harm my children and my grandchildren. I know this and I can't let this happen. And I'll do anything to keep it from happening. And just like you said, them creating these, mythical, teams. And by the way, they keep bringing up people that aren't Kamala Harris,
Mm-hmm.
which lets you know another thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
And I read a tweet the other day by someone, I wish I could remember who it was, but they said, if you think the media is abusing Joe Biden right now, wait until it's Kamala Harris,
Oh my God.
right?
1,000%. I can't say that I saw this coming, but I was looking at the tea leaves a little while back and I was like, feels like sort of like the beginnings of a feeding frenzy, like they're looking for stuff, right? And I wrote a Substack about it and I said this, I said, if you try to leapfrog the first female Black vice president, who is a former district attorney of the largest state in this country and a former senator, if you try to leapfrog her, you're done, because there's no way I would be on board with that, and no way the Black Caucus would be on board with that. But also, what are you signaling? What are you signaling
Right.
to the world, to the rest of the country, to women, to the Black community, the South Asian community, because that is also true. Like, what are you telling them? And what are you telling those children out there and our children? And you knew in the beginning because they started with, let's just talk about Kamala, right? Like that's an option, that's an easy option. And then the next thing you hear is, I just want to talk about, what if we just talk about
Gavin
popular,
Newsom,
right?
right?
Just white governors, popular white governors. Like, what if we just talk about it? Don't we want to win? And it's like, and then, like you said, if it was Kamala, that those, that those same people would be turning, there was something about that they didn't like, because they would say, oh, but this isn't the ticket because why? Right?
Right.
And they're
It's
revealing
always,
so much.
yeah, it's never the right time, right? And Representative Jasmine Crockett just said the other day, she said, which, my God, if I could be in the same room with her, my head would
I
explode.
love her. We need to
I
introduce,
know.
I need to introduce you to, she's coming on my podcast in August, and I'm going to tell
Yes.
her, I'm going to introduce you to.
Tell her I'm a huge fan. I
Yeah, I
adore
will.
her. But she said, Kamala's on the ticket too. Kamala's on the ticket too. Stop, right? And I am, unfortunately, because I'm very rural, very white. I'm in a lot of rural white spaces, and even in those spaces, I'm not hearing anyone say we need to take Joe off the ticket, right? And then whenever I was in a room last weekend in DC with a very diverse room with Black women and listening to them, there was absolutely no wavering at all. They knew exactly who their candidate was. They knew exactly how they were going to vote. And then to see this all happening around them, I mean, obviously they're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And by the way, Joe, we've already had our primaries in Missouri and he won by 87%. Iowa, he won by 91%. I don't know what he did in your state, but I'm assuming he probably won the primary.
I voted for him. Yeah, and he definitely won the primary. And I think that's another thing too. And I was talking about this yesterday, I think, with Mike Madrid. It's 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 unbelievable to me that we just survived uh the attempt to throw away 81 million of our votes, right? That's what Donald Trump tried and failed, thank God, to do. Right now in this moment, our side is essentially saying, well, we'll do that, but we want to do that for good. We'll throw your votes away, but it's going to be for in the end, it's for the good of the country. And then you're like, you're going to do something anti-democratic because you want to make sure we have a democracy. And when you do that, you no longer have the democracy you're seeking to protect, because now what you've done is the means justifying the ends sort of thing. But they don't, because you cannot do something anti-democratic and then say you're doing it in the interest of protecting democracy, because then you've already dismantled it. So now all bets are off moving forward. Who's not going to do something that fits their needs when it comes to our votes? And so we would be no better than them if we started doing the same thing. And I don't care if they say that wasn't a real primary, because that's what they're all saying. Like, I still really voted. Like, I
Right.
still really voted for Joe. And if you're telling me that was for nothing, just performative, then that also is an attack on democracy. It's crazy. That's what we're supposed to be running against, isn't it?
That's what we're supposed to be running against. And that's why when, we now have this new ruling that, basically the president is a king and everybody's like, why doesn't Joe? Why doesn't Joe? Why doesn't, because that's not us. That's not what we do, right? Beside the fact that the Supreme Court said, we'll let you know what an official act is after Joe has left office.
Exactly.
Right? But
Yeah.
the whole point is that's not us. It's never been us to do that. And for them to say, we don't care if 87% of you voted for Joe Biden, we're going to knock it out anyway, is just, it's an outrage. And I understand us having conversations about a terrible debate performance, about someone who is aging, because I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But there's no third option. There's no plan B. There's no parachute. We have seen what happened when they attacked, Hillary. And because I'm not a centrist, Hillary wasn't always, my main gal either.
Mm-mm.
But it's someone, or it's fascism. It's us, or it's authoritarianism. It's kleptocracy. It's the Heritage Foundation writing school curriculum, right?
Yep.
And I need to tell your listeners, I'm in Missouri. We're already running the pilot, for Project 2025. I just did, I'm writing a Substack on it right now. We have a state senator named Rick Bratton, and he held a worship service in his state capitol office 2 days ago. and didn't hide it. He put it on Twitter and he said, we serve God in this office. And, it's them with their hands up and a full-on worship service, with a massive cannon bullet on his desk,
Oh,
but beside
God.
the point, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and a don't tread on me flag.
Mm.
No one wants what's happening here. I said something to the Senate president, the Missouri Senate president, about, because he said school choice had something to do, with the biblical verse. And I said, well, it's a good thing we have separation of church and state. And he was like, that's why you lost, because you're in the minority, right? Because Christian nationalism is all around you. And by the way, you don't, they don't think that I have the right to speak. They don't think I have the right to live where I do because I don't follow their Christian nationalism.
And it's also underway in Florida. Ron DeSantis is another, test balloon down there. The Oklahoma Dead Eyes guy wants the Bible.
Altars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's freaky. It's like, whoa, you get just like a darkness just comes out of those dead eyes.
Yeah.
Um, the Ten Commandments in Louisiana schools, which I find so interesting because Louisiana's infant mortality rate is like one of the worst in the country, if not the worst. They're like 49th in education. And they don't care about all those numbers. Let's not teach them. Let's not actually invest anything in the education of these children. Let's indoctrinate them with our religion because we're so pro-life that we'll let their moms die of sepsis before you an abortion. Like, what are we talking about? It's that's just the on-ramp. That's just like a little amuse bouche for like,
Yeah.
a right-wing theocracy. We have no idea. No idea.
No, I have a relative who lived in Iran in the 70s, and they had a black backyard pool, and she wore mini skirts to school, and those girls went to school, and
Yeah.
so we know what is, and of course, America has a whole lot to do with that, but we know what
Mhm.
happens when there's an installation, of someone who is going to impose their religion. On us. And I always love how Christians all around me will say, Sharia law. And I'm like, dude,
Mm.
you would take back my driver's license and have me, I probably wouldn't be, in a burqa, but I would definitely have, a little white cap on the back of my head with my hair tucked in, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I know these people. I grew up with these people. I grew up in their religion. I know
Mm.
what they want, and nobody wants this. And all we have to do is keep fighting over Joe, and then, Trump walks in.
And you had tweeted this morning about this being just like 2016, and it really felt that way for me too, where I'm like looking around as if I think in 2020 we were still maybe holding on to some of those messages and remembering some of the lessons that we learned, but we all have there's collective amnesia right now where a whole bunch of people are just repeating the exact same, and it's by design from the other side, right? It's by
Right.
design, and they're repeating the exact same mistakes they made in 2016 that were, well, how costly were those? We ended up with 3 Supreme Court justices who stripped us not only of our right to bodily autonomy, but now have essentially, made the executive branch of the United States government a king, but also this dismantlement of the administrative state, which is going way, way back. You know better than anybody. That's something that's been in their agenda for a very long time. And so Donald Trump's presidency, to say that it was consequential is such a massive, massive understatement because the ripples are now tsunamis. And we're still being like, but I don't know. He's old. I mean, have you seen him? Like, I know he was old when we elected him, but like we thought he was like not as old. So I just want to talk about him a lot more than, this literal existential, to use this overused word all the time, threat to our very existences. Like now we're just going to keep fighting about how imperfect this lifetime public servant, who's, by the way, had an incredibly consequential presidency as well. Some would argue one of the most successful presidencies in maybe our country's history, like at least in like the last several generations. But I mean, the fact that we're not focusing our fire on this enemy and instead on nitpicking whether or not Joe Biden's answers were vigorous enough in their competency last night.
Right. And I will say, we keep having this conversation online, and I know that you're the same way as me. And at this point, I'm muting you or blocking you. I'm all done. I'm not listening to you. The one that broke my heart was Stephen King. I grew up reading that
Me
man, and
too.
when I read, I
Me
was like,
too.
You made me a
Same,
reader.
exactly the same. I was like the Bachman books. I was like, give me all the Bachman books. I need to read all of it. Yeah, yeah, that was
I
really
know.
heartbreaking.
It really was. But when you're thinking about it, you're like, he has the privilege to say these things. So what we need to do, how we get out of this circle firing group, is to talk to our neighbors. I have a text group that I've had since 2018 with teachers across the country. We went to a training together and we just fell in love with each other and we talk every single day. And they've come in and they'll say, oh my gosh, did you see this? Oh my gosh, did you see this? What are we thinking? And I can come in full force. I'm thinking it sucked. I'm thinking it was a bad performance, but I'm thinking I don't want my daughters and granddaughters to die of sepsis or,
Yeah.
of a lack of health care, right? And they're
Mm.
like, yep, yep. And so that's what we have to do is reach into, because every one of us has a circle. Every one of us has a text group. Every one of us has neighbors that we can talk to and say, I know it didn't look good, right, friends? I mean, we don't have to be the people saying, it was fine. We don't. We can
Nope.
say it was what it was, right?
Hmm.
But the whole point is I trust the administration. I trust in Biden and I trust that he's not going to sign away our reproductive rights. I mean, he's fought for so many good things. I mean, FDR is always on my mind. And by the way, I mean, FDR was very ill. I mean, he
Hmm.
died while in office, right?
Hmm.
But they kept pushing through those, his administration kept working through those difficulties.
Right. Because it's not, well, it's not yet about one man or one woman. It's not about just that person. Like you said, Kamala's also on that ticket, but there's also the huge infrastructure of adults in the room, right? Like that,
Pete
that
Buttigieg, right?
right?
Yeah.
This is an incredibly talented and capable administration. And what kills me too is when people are like, I don't know if he's up to the job, and he seems like he's not. And then I asked them the same question, every one of them. Okay, then maybe point to a thing that this completely demented, senile, like guy who can't wipe his own butt, to point
Mhm.
to one thing that you were home and you're like, oh my God, was that a nuclear? Did he just nuke Detroit? Oh my God, he picked up the
Right.
phone to call Hunter and he accidentally hit a nuke and now Detroit's gone. No, in fact, you would know probably if he was that demented, but he hasn't. There's nothing. In fact, it's accomplishments after accomplishments. The inflation is falling still. Consumer spending is up. GDP is up. Stock prices, I don't care about that, but I know people do, are up. Jobs, and like the best recovery of from COVID since COVID of all of our like peers, and nothing is befalling this country. The sky is not falling. Do you think like he's all of a sudden now, just since the debate, he just can't do it? He just can't? And and what are you pointing to? I just don't
Right.
understand that.
And I think if we just remind people there are only two choices. There's no infrastructure. I mean, I know you know Heather Cox Richardson and you likely probably read her, listen to her.
Yeah.
She's been very clear historically, there's just no path for someone to come in and to change at this point. So pie in the sky is fantastic. I love people who are always dreaming of different things that we can do, to make things better. And my God, I wish that we could do that this time. It's not the time. It's not the time right now. It's July. And there is early voting in about 69 days. We can't make this happen. And so I hope that everybody, and I said this and I mean it, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but as a rural Democrat, I mean, toughen up, get your
Hmm.
shit together, put on your overalls and pick up a shovel and start doing the shit, right? Because I am sick of people, and I'm not saying anybody's peeing their pants or anything like that, but you gotta toughen up. And I'm used to you get what you get and you don't throw a fit, right?
Hmm.
Like that's what happens out here. If I have a Democrat, my God, I'd be so damn happy. I don't. Y'all don't want what we have. And if I could just shake that into everybody and say, as soon as the election's over, let's start looking at things we could do differently, right? Things
Hmm.
that we could change.
Yep.
That's the time to do it, but not 69 days out.
No. And it's interesting too that you say that because what I realized about, Joe Biden in particular, I was to your point about Hillary, I wanted him to run in 2016. I was one of the those people who was like, I just think that Joe, for all the reasons, he checks all the boxes. He's familiar. People know him. He's trusted. He's been around. He's at that time, he's a white dude. People will very much want it, as we now see, right? Like, as wrong as that and fucked up as that is, and as many brains as it broke to have 8 years of a successful, scandal-free Black presidency. I wanted Joe to run, but I think in 2020 he won for a myriad of reasons, not the least of which is the pandemic that Donald Trump bungled to the point where it's like he should be tried, honestly. Right. But I think that what happened with our party at some point is that even with Joe's nomination, it was still like this Bernie group where that was the Veruca Salt, where they wanted what they wanted and they couldn't see past that. And we were so fractured, seemed like no path where we were ever going to come together. And Joe and Bernie figured it out, right? Like, they figured it out. They're grownups. And Bernie was like, let's figure this out. I'll tell you what, we'll make a compromise. I'll get out. You really have to honestly, truly help with these progressive agendas that my followers, my supporters, that are very important to them. And to a large measure, Joe has kept his word to that. And he says he's not done. I just want to sidebar on this finish the job thing. MSNBC last night actually made him saying, I want to finish the job, almost an issue of pride, like to a stubborn degree, versus, no, he's saying, I started this and there's a path, there's an arc, there's a process. There's a start point, the middle point, we're at that maybe. I want to finish it. That's me following through on what I promised. They were like, they made it sound like, one of the 7 deadly sins versus a committed public servant saying, I want to do this and following it through to the end. Did you catch that? I don't know if you saw that or any of that.
I have been tuning the news out, and just, talking to people, but I have read several opinion pieces that led that with like, he's just being selfish. He just wants the job for him. And I'm like, I don't see that at all. No, I don't see that at all. And I do want to talk for just a second about, with Bernie. I love Bernie. I love his stances. I love a true progressive. I don't know how so many of the people who fell into his lot turned out the way they did, to be vehemently against another Democratic candidate. I personally know someone, I didn't know this until he wrote it, and then I was horrified that he put it out to the world. But he said, I was for Bernie in 2016, and when he didn't win the primary, I didn't vote in the general. And I was like, oh my God.
And I don't want to hear anything to say.
Thinking, right. And now I'm just thinking of all the people that likely did the same thing. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating to me because it has real world issues. It leads to 3 Supreme Court justices. And if Trump gets in again, I'm nearly positive, and you may feel the same, that we're going to get 2 more who will take away our voting rights. I really feel like Vladimir Putin is behind Trump and is orchestrating this. And as soon as if he wins, I feel like, things will go that way. And I know people are like, oh, grab a tinfoil hat. And I'm like, well, I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm just looking out and looking at the world and paying attention. I've been a student of history and literature for a long time. And I see what's playing out in front of me. And I wish other people would really think, right? And not be so led by emotions. And I know it's always directed at women, but I really think it's a lot of men who are way too emotional to comment on politics, because as soon as the sea is rough, Joe, they are bailing. And you and I and the women of the country have our buckets throwing the water out while they're jumping over, right?
Right. And that's so funny that because you're like, trust the women, listen to the women. We're like the flight attendants on a plane. Like when it's bumpy and you're like, okay, we're the flight attendants, because if they're calm and they're still doing the drink card, it's fine. Like, it's fine. But if they're like, oh my God, like you're like, kept me all this fucking thing. What am I going to do? We need to be the flight attendants right now, because those motherfuckers, they jumped out of the plane without a parachute. Like, there's no, they're all still.
No, they do have parachutes. We don't.
Right. Actually, they took ours with them. They were like, I don't know if I'm going to need this later, Mom. but they're still probably going to crash into the ground and
Yeah.
die because they're men. Like my son is 14, and I'm sometimes like, what the fuck were you thinking? Like, oh, you take a butcher knife and he's cutting an avocado like this, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this is what they're doing right now. They're all 14-year-old boys cutting an avocado with a fucking butcher's knife. Like,
And we
stop.
do have to, yeah, we have to remind my husband is very progressive, big old country boy driving this lifted truck. You would be like, oh my God, what a Trump supporter. He's not, he's very progressive, but I have to remind him because he'll listen to me and he'll say, I think it's going to be okay. And I have to remind him, it will be okay for you. You're
Yeah.
right. But look around you. And he's always like, shit, right, right. So you always have to pull them out of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And pull them out of that privilege and say, yes, it'll be fine for you, but pay attention to the folks around you. And please, I know it's cliche, but please vote for those people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying for a while, and I know you feel the same way, but like, I really do feel like the fix, if there's a fix at all, the antidote to this moment in time is being able to see ourselves and other people, that human connection, the humanity component, the things that really do connect us versus separate us and divide us, and being able to say, well, I might be okay in this moment, or whatever happens, I might be okay, but a lot of folks really won't be. And especially as it pertains to, the repro component to this, because we've seen in state after state after state on these ballot measures that it was about democracy for a lot of people, but it was also about, I think people may have said, maybe this isn't a pressing issue for me,
Mhm.
but it might touch my life in some way that I don't yet see. But all those other people who are going to be forced to make these decisions, or these decisions are going to be forced upon them. I think humanity is the big cure, right? And I think in even this attack on Biden, there's an on-ramp for that kind of humanity conversation where it's like, look what you're doing right now. You're destroying, you're kicking in the old balls. A man who has done a great job for you, wants to do more for you. But the humanity component to me and there's a reason that it works, that it gets people when you take it away and when you use those differences to divide. And that's what we're up against. But I think that's why we can fix it by changing the conversation, like you said, talking to our text groups and our neighbors and each other.
Right. And that's where people feel helpless watching all of this happen around them, but just always reminding them, you absolutely are not. You can reach out to folks, you can calm folks, you can be the flight attendant. By the way, I am the person who's like, oh my God, and looking at them. And I do, and that's us right now, that calming presence. Stay the course. I know it's not what exactly what we wanted, right?
Mhm.
But right now we stay the course to get what we want later. And I'll tell you, we have 5 kids, a blended family. I raised 3 boys to adulthood. And I was like, I'm a voter, I'm a whatever. Have a girl, and then have a girl start her period, and then be that mom. In your life, everything flips, everything changes, everything is different now because now I'm like, you're talking about her. You're talking about her every time you're forcing a child to deliver the child of their rapist. You're talking about my daughter who has loose teeth,
Mm.
right? Who plays with Barbies, right? You're talking about her. And every woman in this country, and hopefully every man as well, realizes it. But there's something that shakes you and dislodges in your brain when you have a daughter that they're speaking to directly. And I hope all of us understand that. And for me, it doesn't matter who is on the Democratic ticket. Trump cannot win.
E- Exactly. And you made me get all misty now because, damn it, we go from laughing to crying. That's like life right now because my 11-year-old daughter, she started, her period this year. And when that happened, it everything, like you said, everything I thought was already important to me because, we're in this fight all the time, we talk about it all the time. I always say my daughter has fewer rights. I also always say that something changed. Something
Yeah,
was like, oh God, now the
right,
weight was right on top of my chest. And
right.
I'm looking at, you said, my daughter loves her. She still has, the Target version of the American Girl dolls. She plays with them every day. She calls
Right.
them American Girl dolls. Nobody tell her, okay? She doesn't know, but
We play with the Walmart version, so
okay. So yeah, we even took them. We took these to the American Girl doll store, but it's fine for lunch. But she plays with them every day, like you said, and she was at her dad this morning. She woke up and he had run out to get something, and she's 11 years old, but she called me crying because she was afraid that she was home alone. And I mean, she's okay to be home alone sometimes, but that's still what we're talking about, right?
right.
And they'll force a child to carry their rapist baby to term, that little body to do this. I mean, it just, again, I love Joe Biden. I love Kamala Harris, but if it's a ham sandwich that's on the ticket and it says, I will make sure that I will actually work towards enshrining these rights into law, I won't take them from you for sure. Looking at my daughter, looking at my son, it's very emotional, right? Like, how do you
Right.
not feel that?
I often think that because I'm surrounded by people who don't feel that. And I think a lot of it is denial. They'll say that we're in denial about Joe. And I'm like, you should be around people who vote for Trump. You want to talk
Yeah.
about denial, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's also, hating the people that they also hate. But when you get down to it, and I had to, when I was running for office, I had to knock Republican doors because mathematically you can't win, just counting on Democrats in my district. So I did talk to a lot of Republicans. And when you get down to things like that, when you talk about school funding, that's not divisive at all. When you talk about abortion, it can be, but when you talk about miscarriages and things that all of us went through, I was very young when I had my first son. I was 20, but I was pregnant again at 23. And I think probably 9 weeks along, 10 weeks along. And I went for a run. It was really hot. It was in Arkansas. I went for a run and came back and started cramping, and I miscarried the next day. And I'm like, if that had happened today in certain states, they could maybe charge me with murder, right? Because fetal personhood, because I went for a run, not thinking that I would miscarry this person that's, 10-week fetus in my gut, right? And so these are the things that people need to talk about. And we know that abortion in Arkansas or in Missouri, we're putting it on the ballot. We needed 180,000 signatures. Joe, we got 380,000 signatures because people are mad. Those are Republicans and independents. You can't get 380,000 signatures relying on Democrats. I was taking signatures, and a woman stood up and texted her Bible group and said,
Huh.
"Don't forget, Jess is down here, taking signatures." So
Wow.
these are stories, and that's why these are stories that people need to tell and listen to, and stop listening to the New York Times, stop listening to MSNBC, stop listening to the folks who are doom and gloom, because Joe, that's voter suppression.
Oh yeah.
Spreading those stories is voter suppression. They need to hear from people who are talking to people.
Exactly. And last night, something else came up, or was it maybe this morning, where the question was, does Joe Biden actually have a base? And the answer was, well, it's really more of an anti-Trump base. And I was
Mhm.
like, hi,
Yeah.
no, I'm Joe Biden's base. Like, I'm not the whole base. I'm saying I'm representative of the base. And everywhere I'm looking, in all my DM rooms and all those chat rooms that we're all in, there was no wavering either. And I never wavered. Like you said, I was at the freaking headquarters watching that debate, and it was rough. It was like
Yeah.
my therapist said she thinks that I have like some kind of disassociation with the moment because I don't remember much specifically. I just remember being like,
Like giving birth. I don't know what happened.
yeah. And meanwhile, like after my first C-section, I was like, I'll never do this again. This is pain like I've never known. Why are there knives inside my body? And then it's like, I can't wait to get pregnant again. It's like, what? But yeah, there is a base, by the way, and that base isn't wavering because that base understands also, I truly believe they truly, truly understand what's at stake.
Yeah.
And just piggybacking on your stories thing, because it is also, I think, the fix, the cure, the thing that connects us. I had a conversation recently about my own miscarriage. I've had two. The first was a blighted ovum. I didn't know what I was doing, so I ended up miscarrying at home, which was traumatic in its own thing. But the second, we were more than 20 weeks along. It was very much a wanted baby, and I miscarried. But the thing, and it was very emotional, and I will be sharing that story more. But the thing that struck me recently is when I started to miscarry, uh, I I never had to call up my congressman. Like I didn't have to say, "Hey, Governor Murphy, like I have this dead baby inside of me that I very much wanted to have, and in this right now is really traumatic for me and super emotional, and I like don't even want to get rid of it really because I want to keep it there forever.
Mhm.
But can you just help me get a DNC so that I don't die from it poisoning me?" I never had to do that. I had a miscarriage. I went to my doctor's office. My doctor said, "Here's what we need to do if you're okay with this course of treatment, etc." DNC was the thing. I discussed it with my husband and my doctor. And the next 2 days, actually, 2 days later, because I did spend the next day sort of just sitting with it,
Mhm.
and saying goodbye. Sorry.
Mhm.
But I didn't have to, it wasn't a political question. It wasn't, oh my God, but now I'm going to have to sit here and wait until she passes naturally. And then what happens if I do get sick? And what happens if I have my kids, if I die? I have two
Right.
kids, like I was lucky now in retrospect that I didn't have to wait in a parking lot, that I was able to get care. But if they get their hold on this thing, there's not going to be a state you can fly to, drive to. Now that half the southern states have nowhere to drive to, it's
Right.
it. It's over. Like it's like a war on women, a war on 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 empathy and humanity.
It is. And my husband suffers from, well, he had a life threatening illness, and he went to the local hospital, and he went in and, presented with his symptoms, and they immediately got to work on him. They didn't tell him, you're going to need to sit in the car, because his ejection fraction rate was really low for his heart. And they're like, you're going to have to sit out there until it's like 10%, right? We're going to need to see some, I don't know, vomiting of blood. We're going to need to see your liver fill up with blood,
Right.
right? They
Right.
treated him. They're like, oh, by the way, we don't have the best treatment. So they sent him 2 hours away to get the best treatment. No questions asked. Nobody needed to be called. No lawyers need to be consulted. My husband presented with a life-threatening illness and was given treatment right away. But you and I and our daughters cannot get the same thing. And I'm telling you, that's enough to make my head explode. I can't stand it. I won't stand for it. I can't fathom that this has happened when you and I have suffered how we've suffered, but by God, we got the care we needed. And now they will deny it for what? They're not pro-life. I mean, we all know that. We know that they're not pro-life. I talk to them all the time. I talk to them daily. They are not pro-life. They don't give a shit about anybody, right?
Right. Right. They'll starve your kids at school, by the way. They'll force you to have it. And then when they get to kindergarten, sorry, you're on your own, kid. You're starving? Good luck.
Right. Guns everywhere. Children in Missouri can open carry long guns on the streets.
Right.
Literally. People are
Right.
like, no, they can't. Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Come to Missouri. I know the laws.
They fought
But
for that one. They fought for that. They fought
but
for that.
they're
Yeah.
like, well, no, we don't need a minimum. I think you probably do. I don't know. I don't know. Can't vape, can't smoke, can't drink, can definitely carry a long gun. An
Can't go
open
to a
carry.
movie. Can't go to a rated R movie.
Right.
Here's an AR-15, Sonny.
You could be, I mean, in your car seat, strapped and strapped, right? But like that's the lunacy of what we're freaking dealing with.
Yeah.
And these are the conversations we need to have with our friends, with our friend groups, with people who aren't insane. Maybe they vote conservatively, and I put that conservatively. Maybe they think they are conservatives, but these things make no sense, and our children shouldn't have to die for them.
No, and I've honestly, since Dobbs, I thought I could imagine like the worst scenarios. Like I thought it would just be, wow, these women in these states can't get abortions, right? Like I had no idea. Like we made a video recently where we talked about that. Like I had no idea that a woman miscarrying in Ohio would be charged with committing a homicide because
Right.
her body did not finish the pregnancy, you know what I mean, to
Right.
term. I did not expect that women like Amanda Strosky and Kate Cox would be left to die, or that they might not be able to have children they very much want to have. So we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We know it's so much worse than we ever could have imagined already, because it is. So what is coming, if we get this thing wrong, is going to make what we're looking at right now feel like child's play.
And that's when they talk about kids aren't excited. Well, kids are very concerned about bodily autonomy, but also the climate. That's a chevron, right? And like I said, Missouri we've already been running the pilot. So in 2019, they took away local control of CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations. They can pour literal shit into our streams, and there's nothing we can do about it. We cannot sue. We are one of 3 states, Idaho, Iowa, and Missouri, where Bayer, the medicine folks, they wrote, a pharmaceutical company, they wrote a bill talking about the fact that we can't sue for injuries due to Roundup, which is sprayed on our fields all the time, right? I have the dive bombing crop dusters over my house all the time, right? What are they spraying all around me? And now the state of Missouri says, if you get cancer clearly caused from Roundup, sorry, you can't sue them.
What? It's not like caution, contents of this cup may be hot McDonald's coffee. It's not like you've sufficiently signed up for this pesticide to be in your lungs. They are doing it to you, and then they're saying, we know this is gonna make you sick, but you made a choice to just breathe. Why'd you do that? I mean, were you thinking that through? Right. Oh Lord, I did not know that.
And this is what's coming to all of us. All you have to do is look at states like mine, look at Texas, look at Iowa, look at Florida, and say, do I want to live like that? Then you better vote right. You better not stay home. You better get other people to go, because we have 2 options. We have Biden or Trump. That's it.
And again, not only are we talking about all the things that we would be facing with a Trump presidency, but with that court. That court is such a huge component because of what they've been able to dismantle. Like you said, like Chevron is terrifying, folks. Terrifying. But conversely, if Joe Biden, and when Joe Biden wins in November, there are lots of things that may happen, right? Hypothetically. Let's say hypothetically, Clarence Thomas does say, like, I'm punching my card. I don't know that he wouldn't say, I'm going to try and hold on for the next 4 because he's an evil motherfucker and he's being sustained by evil. I really do believe it. But like, maybe, just maybe, he'd be like, all right, I'm out. And so, boom, we got one more pick, right? And then what if, I won't say Sotomayor because she's a Democrat, but like, what
Alito,
if,
let's say Alito.
Yeah, he's an old dude. He's got flags to fly upside down in other countries, I'm sure. Like, I'm sure he wants to fly, whatever, tread on me flag, whichever way he wants to fly it. But he can fly his freak flag wherever the fuck he wants, but he can peace out too. He can. And we don't know. Anything could happen. Anything can happen. Trump could get 3 if Sotomayor goes out and those 2 tap out too. 3. But they could all be like, I don't know if there's a minimum age. I think it's like 35, right? So they could all be 30-5. Amy Coney Barrett is going to be a Supreme Court justice when my 11-year-old daughter is like, I want to have kids, right. Potentially. And so they could stack the court with that. And if Biden gets those opportunities, we can start to reshape that court. But also, if we get enough, this is fantasy land talk, but I'm not saying it's not possible. If we get enough of a majority, a real majority, which is, whatever, and some sane people who say, actually, I want to impeach some motherfuckers, and Joe Biden can expand the court. He can. There's nothing unconstitutional about it. You can do 11, just like we have 11 district courts. There's no reason you can't. So we could take some of these really fucked up dystopian. Where is the precedent that says you can take a bribe as the president? Where's the precedent? And where's the Constitution say he can shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue? I missed that, but you guys have said it's okay. Like, we can change that court. And so we can take some of these rulings and reverse them. Like, we can go back to protecting the planet and making sure that the EPA has oversight on these poisoning corporations. Like, we just have to, like you said, get out, talk to our friends, talk to each other, use our platforms as much as possible, and focus on the enemy as much as possible and not on each other as much as possible.
Right. The old line, Democrats have to fall in love and Republicans fall in line. And it's true. We, the enemy of good is perfect, right? What we've got going is good. It is not perfect, but Jesus Christ, we can't afford. We already know what Trump is about. We've already known. He says what he's going to do. He says he's going to round up every brown person in this country. If you think that they're going to check citizenship papers when they do this, you're wrong. Joe, you're in danger. I'm in danger. It's very personal, but beyond that, I'm worried about my neighbors. We already know what's going to happen, so we have to stop it. And I think we stop it by we stop beating each other up and going after each other. This is a great ploy to get us to pay zero attention to, what is going to happen over here.
Mm-hmm.
He was I just saw a tweet from Viktor Orban talking
Yeah.
about being at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, he's not even hiding it. He's not even hiding it. No.
It's there.
Yeah, and the connections to Putin, I'll put my tinfoil hat on too. I was having a conversation yesterday with someone who works in foreign policy, has worked in foreign policy since the Obama administration, knows all the players. And in 2016, somebody who in Ukrainian intelligence was like, something's going on here.
Yeah.
There is something going on here. Like we had those data points already with Russia, or if you're listening, and all the meetings on adoption and everything. And Paul Manafort, where the fuck did Trump ever be like, oh, I like that guy? No, you didn't just organically come up with him. There's all these data points and crossover points. And Putin was very clear. He very clearly had a favorite. Hillary Clinton did our best to warn us, but we were able to surmount enough of a fight, a coalition, that we kept Putin from being able to fulfill his wish list in 2020 to 2024. But he didn't give up. He certainly didn't give up. And Trump's not being quiet either, because he keeps saying, well, I let Putin just march all over Europe. Are you kidding me? 1000%. So all these the same exact people who call World War II vets, the greatest generation, and arguably they are, right? They are voting or supporting someone who is doing Putin's bidding. And that's the thing too. It's like, open your eyes a little bit. I know that sounds, again, like I'm doing 10 million pieces of paper on the wall, but also it's pretty easy to see this, right?
Very easy. Yeah. Even for a hick like me, I can just open up a newspaper and read and go, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't sound right. And it sounds like something that maybe we should be talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And people, when you knock doors, when you talk to people, you're going to run into reasonable people. And that's why we have to be everywhere. That's why states like Missouri matter. When the DNC is like, that place is too red, nothing, we're going to let it go. And it's like, how is that working out?
Exactly.
Please,
right?
Please pay attention, right? And let's all get on board and move this country forward and stop ceding ground and stop walking away from hard fights. And that's what it is with Joe. We have people who are just not used to having to fight for everything they have. And some of us are. And to me, it's a real clear choice. And then when I talk to people who are very solid, I know, Joe, it's a bad idea. Don't do it. It's Joe. Let's go.
Yeah. I beat this thing to death, but I do love me a mixed metaphor. I do love me some bus references. It's the choice for me. Like, so you want to go to the mall, and you're like, I'm going to take the bus, and you're at the bus stop, and this bus like sort of putters up to you, and it sputters up to you, and it's the door opens and there's an old guy driving, and the bus smells, kind of bad, and the seats are a little like, ooh, I don't know if I want to sit there. And the bus never goes above like 35 miles an hour. It's going to take you probably 2 days to get to the mall, but you really want to go to the mall, and you're like, oh, this is going to take a while. Let me think about this. And then this other bus goes comes screaming around the corner, never really stops. It opens the door, and there's this madman who can't even drive a golf cart at the wheel, and he's like, get on, it's gonna explode, get on, let's go, we're going over a cliff, that's how we're gonna get to the mall, get on. And it's the bus from Speed, right? And it's like, which bus are you going to fucking pick right now? Because the bus that gets you to the mall, in a couple of years, they're going to retire that bus, and then you get to pick a whole new shiny bus, and you get to pick the things you want on the bus, and the bells and the whistles, and we can fight over, what color seats are going to be, and how fast is the thing going to go? Well, who's our driver going to be? But if we get on that bus from Speed, we're going over the side of a motherfucking cliff and exploding like this. But it'll be really exciting. It'll be really exciting.
There'll be lots of stories to write about the bus. Lots of pundits to talk about the bus. Stephen King could write a novel about the fucking bus.
Bus. He'll ride it from Milan or like Como, when he's living in his best life over there in Italy, and the rest of us are in the ravine down at the bottom of
Let,
the bus.
let me tell you, I'm visiting. I've always wanted to visit Maine, and I am going in August, and I'm so excited about it. And I was gonna go. Like, I wanted to be in Stephen King land, and now I'm like, I am not going anywhere near Stephen King land until he gets his brain back, right?
Right.
I don't know what sort of brain eating amoeba he's eaten. I don't know what is up, but we just have to know. We have to recognize who is saying it and who is not panicking, who is standing here steadfast saying you get what you get. And we can always work on things later.
Yes.
And I wish kids, I wish it was everything you ever wanted, but it's not politics. It's not the way of the world.
It's not
But
the
I'm
way
listening
of the world.
to, and I'm listening to them, and I know, and I'm ready to fight for them. I know you are too. We need them. We need voices from young folks, but it's got to be.
Yeah, and it's funny because the scariest thing Stephen King ever wrote was a tweet telling Joe Biden to step aside of all the things he's ever written.
I thought The Stand was bad, right?
Oh,
I was like, oh my God.
What's the one? It was like a Bachman book, I think, or maybe it was in the one with the monkeys. I forget. It was the one where they were on that raft, like the floating raft in the lake, and all of a sudden, like the lake starts eating them, and then the raft's getting smaller and smaller. It was a short story, and like they're all like falling into the water, and there's like two left. I forget. I cannot remember the name of it, but that scared the shit out of me. This Stephen King now is scaring me more than that.
Very much so.
But here's what I'll say last thing, and then I'll ask you one funny, just like random question. But wait, I don't know. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, this is the thing I was going to say. That said, all of that said, Rob Reiner, Stephen King, Jon Favreau, even the fucking Bulwark boys. I don't know about Tim. I'm kidding. He hates it, but it's fine. But I'm a big enough person where I can say, all right, you come home. It's like your kid says, I'm going to run away and join the circus because you didn't let me have that second cookie. And you're like, then they come home like they're like, it's dark. And you're like, okay, what lessons did we learn here? You don't just run away. You're not going to join the circus. You can't always get the second cookie. Now you don't get the second cookie. You're all upset. You need a bath. Go take a bath and we'll get you nice and clean and dry. And then we can come back and I'll read you a story. That's kind of how it is. I'm not going to be like, nope. You were out. You didn't help us. You're out now.
Right.
That's the difference. We're the adults in the room, and we will welcome you back to Team Sanity with maybe a chastising look or two. But
that's right.
We're not going to kick you out.
Just like we did with the women who were always voting against their self-interest until Roe fell. And we were like, we told you, but okay, all right, come on, right? I mean, I'm really pissed at you, but let's go, right?
Right. Like, we don't have any time for this shit, but it's okay. Yeah, so I keep thinking too, there's a scene in Steel Magnolias, which is one of the most famous movies, famous scenes.
Make me cry.
Oh my God. And and she's like,
in terms of endearment, like those two, like my throat hurts.
Forget it. Oh my God. But when Sally feels it's like, I just don't understand. I'm so mad. I want to hit something. I want to hit something. And then Olympia Dukakis grabs Shirley MacLaine. She goes, hey, hit her. Hit Razor. Like, I want someone to come in and be Olympia Dukakis right now and say to all these other people like the Rob Reiners who are like, I just, and then give them something, not preferably Shirley MacLaine, but like something that they can hit for a second, and then we can all laugh and be like, now, what? We just lost our minds for a second. Yeah, things are hard, but we're okay.
You reference that movie, and do you remember the part where Shelby's dying and the boys left the room?
Yeah.
And she said, the men couldn't deal with this, right? It was on the women to take care of this. And I think about that all the time. God love them. I raised a lot of men, right?
Right.
But they don't have necessarily the fortitude to understand what happens to us, during times like this. And so we need to, not that I hate men or anything, but we do need to pull them along and say, listen, right? Listen to us.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Listen to the women. Listen to the women. All right. There's just one random question. I usually do a whole round of it, but I feel like this conversation was so cathartic. Like, usually the random questions like make me feel better because it's like a little laugh, but I feel better just talking to you. Like I was like, I'm just gonna hit record because I need to talk to my girl. I need to talk to her. I need to feel like I'm not insane. I need to feel like we're gonna be okay. I need to feel like refueled, recharged, like I'm back in the fight, ready to throat punch some motherfuckers because I know you were
Yes.
thinking the same thing. Like every morning I was like, who am I gonna throat punch today? I don't care. Joker's still left to me. My clown's still left to me. Joker said, I'm gonna throat punch y'all. Okay. I don't fucking care. But you have restored so much of my strength and my sanity and my resolve and my like
Oh, good.
motherfucking ready to drive this thing. So the random question I was gonna ask, just random. Who would last longer in a zombie apocalypse? Lauren Boebert or James Comer?
Probably James Comer. Lauren Boebert would probably, take her, her big gun and head over there, and they would eat her brains out before she was able to load or reload, right?
But they'd be
That
like, I
woman
don't
is
know if this one has brains.
that woman is a shit stain on the country. Like she is the smelly armpit. She is the dirty diaper, right? I mean, she is just unbelievable. When you think, and this is what I always, when I talk to people about running for office, they're always like, especially women, I don't know, I'm just a teacher, I'm just a whatever. And I'm like, have you talked to your representative? Have you seen these debates? Do you pay attention? Have you
Mm-hmm.
seen Lauren Boebert, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my last thing is run for office, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't talk much about that, but I mean, we are all capable of doing the things that need to be done. We are all capable of moving this country forward. We just have to be who we are, and we have to mute those pundits, mute those people who have nothing to lose because they don't. We have something to lose, and so do our neighbors and our children. And so we just keep moving on. We cannot stop, and we can't listen. We can't listen to the shit because, like I said from the beginning, it's watching that horror film in slow motion, and I refuse, and you do too. We refuse to sit by and let this shit happen again. I will not.
Nope, and nor will I, and that's why I love you so much. Get a fucking shovel, fellas. Start
And some
shoveling.
overalls.
Shit, seriously, it's a snap out of it. And by the way, while you're all over there focusing on whatever nonsense, we're gonna be here focusing on what's at stake, but also focusing on who we're running against, which is a convicted felon, adjudicated rapist, business fraud, traitor who will become a dictator, and the Supreme Court will let him, and what our president and that entire administration wants to do for us.
Mhm.
And that's what we're going to be doing because that's where we need to be right now. Not like, but I don't like him because, and I don't like you because, like, I get it. People have lots of emotions, but let's just get the fucking work done, friends.
Right.
And
Get to work.
you get to work, get a shovel, get to work. I love you,
So my
Jessica.
dad always said, head down, get to work.
Yeah, I love it. You know what my dad used to always say? It's funny. I always thought of this in my mind. He said if it was easy, it probably wasn't the thing that was most worth doing,
Yeah.
right? And democracy, she ain't easy. Like she is messy. My house is a mess. She makes my house look immaculate. It is messy. It is hard. It is a daily practice. We didn't know that, some of us. We took it for granted. It was like gravity was always going to be there. Obviously, that's not the case, but we, the people, are going to shape and shift this thing away from the grip of authoritarians. I believe it. I just believe it in my soul. And there's no utility in thinking about not the reality of him winning. And I know he can. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying let's focus our energy on making sure it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
Let's go.
I'm behind you.
What are you working on, Jess? Like, where can people find you, and what's going on with Substack? Tell me about that a little bit before you go.
So Substack, it's the View from rural Missouri. I'm having a great time there. I started it because I was angry at some Missouri state senators and I needed long form, and now it's just kind of,
Oh, it's
you
the
know,
best. Yeah, I love it over there.
know.
It's the best community
I,
ever. It's the best. It's the best platform community I've ever seen. They're awesome.
I think so too. I
Yeah.
think so too. Not nearly as many trolls and bots. Of course, I'm on all of social media at Piper for Missouri. And then I'm the executive director for Blue Missouri. I raise money for down ballot candidates in Missouri because everyone deserves representation, and everybody who puts their neck out deserves funding.
Yes, they do. I love you, Jess. I am so grateful for you. And everyone, please do check out her Substack. She popped up on Substack one day and I was like, oh, she's here. She's here.
Well, thank you for leading the way. Love you too, Joe. And I love everything you're doing. Thanks for having me.
Ah, thanks, Jess. Okay, everybody. Well, I got chills. I got chills and multiplying, and I'm ready to elect Joe. I just made that up on the fly. It's electrifying.
I love Grease.
You better vote Joe, or I'll punch your throat, and I'll punch it with my fist.
This better stay in whatever you're producing this to. I need to hear this at the end, all right? Don't delete it.
Okay, here, I'm gonna clean it up. You better vote Joe, or I'll punch your throat. I will do it with my fist, with my fist, with my fist. He's the one we need. Oh, I love democracy. Oh, he's the one that we need. Oh, democracy, the one I need.
If I had any voice, I would be your backup, your doo-wop
This is
girl.
not a
but I do
voice,
not.
but sorry, everybody. On that note, that concludes this episode of the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast and musical cabaret. Thank you again, Jess Piper, guys. She's a fucking badass. If you don't know her, you need to find her, follow her, read her Substack, subscribe to it. She's a medicine, a shot in the arm, a shot of adrenaline, a shot of hope, a shot of let's fucking do this thing. And she is what we all need right now. And you gave me the biggest, I'm like, ready. I'm ready. It was also this giant refresher from Dunkin' Donuts, but that
helps.
It helps a lot. So thank you, Jess. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.